Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Off the Fence, brought to you in association with BoyleSports, of course, and we are here to wrap up the Cheltenham Festival. We built up to it all season long, really. We had 4 excellent days of sport, some highs, some lows, some good and some bad, and we are going to be dissecting it all now on Off the Fence in the company, as always, of Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan, brought to you in association with BoyleSports and across all the At The Races digital platforms. And we want to hear from you out there, guys. What was your performance of the week from Cheltenham? And we have something to give away, BoyleSports Irish Grand National tickets. So get involved in the comments box below. Do you agree with what we're saying? Do you not agree? Do you want to have your 2 pence? Throw it in there and we will give away some tickets to some lucky viewers. So in the comments box below on YouTube, please. Let's introduce the boys. As always, Barry Geraghty, Tony Keenan. Barry, how are you back in Ireland after your week at Cheltenham?
Yeah, good, Vanessa. Yeah, it was a great few days racing. But four long days, 4 busy days, and I was glad of waking up in my own bed on Saturday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, there were some highs, there's been a few lows, specifically in the aftermath, but ultimately we got 4 good days of sport and we got a top class championship race on Friday, which we'll be dissecting very soon. Tony, you were watching it all from home, of course. How did you enjoy your week as a whole?
It was fine. I was actually sick for most of it. A few people probably commenting I was looking a bit ropey on the on the daily shows and that. I hope I look a wee bit better now. I'm starting to feel a wee bit better. I realistically, I don't think it's a Cheltenham Festival that's going to live long in the memory. I think the first 2 days were very underwhelming. The second 2 days redeemed them a little bit, but I would hope that events in those last 2 days wouldn't cover up the cracks that are there, because I think really some of the stuff that went on in some of the grade ones on Tuesday and Wednesday, it was akin to the weakest of the Irish stuff you'd see in the graded races here, and really Cheltenham needs to do a bit better than that. You're always going to have odds on shots in the presence of superstars, but we probably shouldn't have had so many of them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and actually I caught up with Barry when we were over there at Cheltenham and we both kind of said the same in terms of just the festival never really caught fire over those first couple of days. Thursday a fraction better, good result on Friday, but like you say, Tony, there's work to be done, isn't there? I don't think anyone at this point is denying that, but we are not here to solve those greater problems, but we are here to dissect the performances from the week, because if you love horses and you love horse racing, this is your show, essentially. So let's kick off. We're not going in chronological order, we're just going in what we want to talk about, essentially. So we are going to start with the Gold Cup, and of course that saw Galopin Des Champs put in another devastating performance to win his 2nd Cheltenham Gold Cup, and he looks ripe to be another horse to try and make it 3 on the bounce. Tony, I'll start with you here. He's had a proper campaign, this horse. We've seen him defeated, we've seen him in sensational form at Leopardstown, and then we've seen this sort of toughness in a Gold Cup. I love this horse now more than I've ever loved this horse, I think.
You couldn't not. It really is a season for the ages there, at least the modern age. Couto Star, the only thing that could come close to it. Since the Cheltenham Gold Cup last season, he's gone for every available Irish Grade 1. They haven't left their mark. He's come back and he's produced, maybe the 2nd best performance of the season. Leopardstown at Christmas was so outstanding. Showed his toughness, massive jump at the last. Form looks very solid. Jerry Colum kind of coming back, or probably producing a performance better than he has ever produced. Sounds like he's going to go on to Punchestown. Very hard to win back-to-back Gold Cups. I know Boom Photo achieved it, but off a totally and utterly different preparation. This horse, as I say, that has gone to Leopardstown twice, Punchestown twice in the interim. Terrific effort, and some good efforts down the field. Corach Ramblers obviously set himself up nicely for the Grand National. I thought Long Press proved her trainer correct, I'd say, in giving him that extra run at Ascot. I thought he ran a screamer. He was the one, I suppose, to put it up to Galopin Des Champs into the straight, at least. Maybe just didn't quite see it out in the end. Pity Fast or Slow didn't get around. He seemed to have a lovely kind trip in covered up amongst horses. Until he's on seat. Maybe we will see the two of them clash again at Punchestown, which would certainly be no foregone conclusion. But yeah, I think, look, Galopin Des Champs, he was the crowning moment of the meeting in kind of the crowning race.
Yeah, as it should be. And Barry, obviously a totally different kind of horse, a totally different race to that one of 12 months ago, a different ride for Paul Townend as well. But ultimately, other than the loose horse, a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, it wasn't straightforward from last year, but what really was this year, kept out of trouble with the exception of Fast or Slow, and he was loose, giving him a little bit of grief. And the way he jumped the last, he was good for a few more lengths, I'd say, if needs be. Geraghty and Corrick Rambler, they kept going and they were outpaced, I suppose, from about 4 out, but they did stay going really well. But I'd say the race was robbed of something very important when Fast or Slow checked out down the back, because he had won the John Durkin over 2.5 well. He did have the pace to put it up to Galopin Des Champs, whereas Geraghty and Corrick Rambler, they stayed on. They didn't have that tactical pace to make a race of it with the winner, where I think Fast or Slow could have done that. And I'd very much agree with Tony that it's no foregone conclusion come Punchestown who wins, and maybe you might see the fresher horse come out on top again as he did last year, so that will be interesting. But it was a brilliant performance by the winner, as good as you've seen for a good while.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And just as a side note, after this show, we have 3 special sort of shows coming up for you, and one of them will be previewing the Punchestown Festival. So stay tuned for that. We'll be looking into Galopin Des Champs versus Fast or Slow rematch again. Tony, let's swing back to State Man on Tuesday in the Champion Hurdle. Look, like, I don't know. I know he's won, 9 grade 1s now? 10 grade 1s is it now? But beating Irish Point and Lucia a few lengths, I know he can only go and win, but it was a bit meh for me. I can just put it out there.
Yeah, it was. Maybe Cheltenham's not really his track. I think he's run to much higher figures at Leopardstown, particularly maybe Punchestown a little bit as well. He's a terrific horse. He's kind of workmanlike, I suppose, in his brilliance. He turns up, he's there, he runs his race, he hits high marks, but maybe just not quite as good at that track. I think it's important kind of recognise the decision making of the whole Rob Core operation here at the meeting. Like, talk about getting absolutely everything right. I would have been one saying, what were they doing running Irish Point here and taking a chance on the ground with Teupo, but it worked out brilliantly for them. I think they've really maximised the resources there. They did likewise, switching Slade Steele back to the Supreme. They got Jerry Colum, peak performance out of him, so well done to all there making the decisions. I think just an excellent week of results that they probably couldn't dream of, picking everything so correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, saving the likes of Bob Ollinger for an Aintree as well. Could that come to the result they want too? They're just getting it right. And you're right to flag that up, actually. Barry, let's move on to the Champion Chase. You were talking there about, Fast or Slow's departure robbing something of the Gold Cup in terms of the end result. Very much sort of the same comments in regards to El Fabiolo checking out after his big mistake in the Champion Chase, and of course Captain Guinness there to pick up the pieces. Not a vintage renewal, we can say that pretty confidently. But what of El Fabiolo? There's just one mistake too far?
Yeah, his jumping wasn't, even to his standard, it wasn't amazing over the first 4. But when a horse like him, who should be full of running, makes a mistake like that, usually they get such a fright on landing, they jump into the bridle and they're charging, coming away from the back of it. But that wasn't the case. Paul Townend had him pulled up within 100 yards. There was no response for the horse. So for whatever reason, I'd say he didn't turn up, and the mistake was a thing of nothing, because he only guessed the defence and sprawled. It was very it was a strange one, but I'd say Paul, I'd say by the looks of it, was sitting on very little, so there probably wasn't much more to offer. As regards the race itself, then Edwardstone went forward, which I was hoping he wouldn't do. I was hoping to ride him a bit more conservatively, and it teed it up perfect then for something to come from off the pace. And Captain Guinness, it was brilliant for him to eventually get his first grade 1, and I think it was his 13th attempt.
Yeah, incredible, really. But like Ruby Walsh was saying afterwards, you have to be in it to win it. You have to buy the lottery ticket. You have to be there. And these are horse races. Not everything is as straightforward as odds-on shots just winning. Barry, let's stick with you for the Stayers Hurdle, because of course any committed viewers and listeners of this show will know that you are well on board the Teupo train for the Stayers Hurdle a good few weeks and months in advance, and your confidence in this horse, Barry, did not waver, and it didn't waver in the market either. I couldn't believe the price he went off in the end in that sort of field, given how many cases you could make for the rest in behind him, but he got the job done in fine style, and a great training performance as well from Gordon.
So yeah, it was a brilliant performance by Tia Hoop, who Jack rode him with lots of confidence, kept him wide, kept him out of trouble, travelled away really well. A little bit untidy at the second last, but always had everything under control. So a really good performance. As I hoped he'd step up from what he did last year. But he was a good, solid winner, and Flooring Porter obviously on a great race to be second. But no, you'd have to be delighted with Tia Hoop. But
And Tony, from Gordon's point of view, this win will have come as a big relief, not only just that he needed it at that time of the week, but also, that confidence he had in his own decision to say after December, wasn't it, start of December when we last saw him, no, we're keeping him fresh for the festival. And then that plan to come off, it's credit to Gordon and the operation.
Yeah, and I think he was barely past the post in Fairyhouse, but they were saying he was going straight to Cheltenham. They obviously already had it in their head at the time. A very good decision out of them. Did he really need to win another Galmai hurdle? Of course he didn't. The prize money for that race is so pitiful, not worth talking about, and leaving its mark as well. And he'd come for this very valuable race and win it well. And now you can go on to the Grade 1s at spring. Now again, he'd probably need the weather to play a ball at Punchestown and at Aintree, maybe even on to France, but this is the one that they wanted to win. It set up well. From, I suppose, in terms of pace, it was mad to consider that Flooring Porter probably got to the front in a stayers hurdle for the third time in 4 years and didn't really get a massive amount of pace pressure. The only year really where he was forced into going a kind of a strong gallop was last season. Again, Gavin Cromwell's done really well, probably picking the right race for him. Very hard to foresee a thing where he was going to beat Corbett's Cross, but he's come in here to an open Grade 1 and finished second. Home with Lee ran a fine race, probably would have preferred a slightly stiffer test. I thought further down the field, Sire de Burley actually showed a little bit of spark. Horse only having had one run this season, again probably relatively steadily run race wouldn't have suited. He would have a chance going on to Aintree. That race can be the stiffest test of all in terms of these staying hurdlers over 3 mile one at kind of a race with a track, where they can get racing quite early. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to improve in his position here when it gets to Liverpool.
Not quite done with yet, Sire de Burley. Let's move on and talk about some of the novices, Tony, and we will go straight to the Arkle. Gaelic Warrior, obviously Hood applied. We know how much ability he had. They decided to go over the 2 mile trip, and then he puts it all together on the day with that new bit of headgear that Willie used so often over the 4 days of the festival. Is it 2 miles all the way now for him? Will that be the course they go down?
I don't know. There's plenty of options there for him. The fact that they do have El Fabiolo and possibly a return on an Ergamine might complicate that. It was a terrific performance out of him, but especially out of the trainer who resolved whatever was ailing him at the DRF. The Hood seemed to help. What was it he said after it made him race like a racehorse, I suppose, rather than doing things silly. And kind of the only time he went any inclination to go right was I think at the last. A brilliant performance on the day. One thing though I would kind of point out, like, it really would have looked an ordinary Arkle beforehand. Found a 50 now, has run well, but Eli Thomas just has again proven that he just doesn't handle the track. He's actually done very well, I think, to finish third in the end. So just visually excellent, but in terms of form, it would look a fair bit off kind of a strong champion chase type performance. I think an El Fabiolo or an Ergamine would still be setting a high bar for him. But again, he does have the option of going further. Plenty of form that he has in the book, over 2.5 and 3 miles previously.
Yeah, absolutely. It does sort of have the world at his feet at the moment now that, as Willie said, and as you said there, Tony, he's just racing so much better and much more professional now. And so who knows, there could be more to come from him under that bonnet. Fact Far looks like a real superstar, Barry, very much on the up, and wins the Brown Advisory. I'm still thinking he's not quite the finished article, but of all the novice chasers, he'd be my top slot. I don't know how you feel, but he'd be number one for me.
Yeah, it's very easy to like him. It was a good performance, but I suppose we were hoping for fireworks. But he was pretty novice through the race, and I suppose he hasn't had the benefit of a season of hurdles. So he had 1 point a point, and this was his 4th run over fence, I think. So he had limited experience over jumps, and it probably showed through the race. But he also physically he looked pretty raw. So I'd imagine there's going to be a big improvement in him over the summer and into next season. So he's a gorgeous horse. I'd say he will improve no end. And he has, the world is his oyster, if you like. He got the trip well too, which suggests, with time as well, he's gonna there shouldn't be an issue with him getting a Gold Cup trip. But but he looks a good solid type, and you'd have to love him.
He's sort of in his race, Barry. He seems that he can just get that bit keen. We saw him get lit up at Leopardstown, sort of latch onto the bridle a bit, and he did the same, I thought, at Cheltenham. He's sort of travelling all right, and then he kind of latches on a little bit in Mark Walsh's hands. That's something that he'll just grow out of, right? To help him stay the trip if they want to go that way.
Exactly, probably a little bit like Galopin Des Champs when he was a novice, because he was letting fly at some fences too. So just coming alive, a bit of innocence, but that's a good sign. You want a horse in a top race who's taking you on a little bit. It's a slow horse is limited, but a horse who's got pace, he's a horse with a lot of potential.
Love it. Back to file for me in the number one slot of novice chasers, Tony. Would you agree with that, or would you have Grey Dawning in the Turners above him?
I think I'd have Grey Dawning ahead of him. Yeah, just the two races that I enjoyed most over the week. Now, not financial involvement or anything like that. In terms of drama, good to watch and all that, were this race, the Turners. I thought the Hunter's Chase was really dramatic as well. What do we see? The Mayor's Hurdle, the Champion Hurdle, the Fact to Fail race, the Ballyburn race. Nothing happened in them. It was like you were going into it beforehand. It was like going to a football match, where the favourite's going to win by 12 points or 15 points. It was that kind of race. There was nothing really that happened, but this race was just brilliant in terms of the two of them just went at it from the start and jumping from fence to fence, electric kind of stuff. And I'd give Grey Dawning the world of credit for this. Ginny's Destiny just loves Cheltenham, brilliant jumper. I didn't think Grey Dawning would be particularly well suited to be coming down and trip. He coped with every bit of it, showed a really good attitude. He never missed a beat in terms of jumping, which had been an issue on kind of his previous start, and very kind of exciting prospect for next season among the English staying novices, with the potential to be more to come with him stepping back up to 3 miles. And you just know that Paul Nicholls is going to find a grade 1 or 2 for Ginny's Destiny along the way, a really kind of encouraging effort again from it. Just again, those things right. I know he missed the second last a little bit, but everything up to that and the one after that was excellent. But yeah, a really strong piece of form. And I think I know the third and the fourth and that closed up a bit in them late, but they're only flattered by the proximity to my mind.
Okay. Let's also mention then the National Hunt Chase, of course, Barry, won by Corbett's Cross, a horse we have given plenty of airtime to in generally a positive tone on this show throughout the season. And by God, didn't he come good here, beating Embassy Gardens by, I think, was it 17 lengths in the end? A devastating performance. What he would have done in the Brown Advisory, who knows? But this, again, sort of, as I was saying about Gaelic Warrior, in a way, just a different sense. Talk about putting it all together on the day. I mean, exceptional from him all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, it was a brilliant performance. Derek gave him a great ride, got him relaxed as much as he could. He was a little keen at times, but jumped well. But he just sat and delayed as long as he could. He kept out of the race as much as possible. Now, he sprinted away up the straight. And it was a Gold Cup type performance. But Embassy Gardens had an irregular heartbeat afterwards and was still showing an irregular heartbeat again the following morning. So, he was definitely, his run was there's no doubt was affected by that. But you could take nothing away from the winner. Visually, he was very impressive, but he probably just didn't get the test that we might have expected him, because likewise, Embassy Garden didn't even jump as well as he can do. So, brilliant by the winner, but just a pity to see Embassy Gardens disappoint the way he did.
Yeah, and like you say, that winning distance probably, is exaggerated by that, of course. Again, listeners and viewers out there, said at the start of the show, we have BoyleSports Irish Grand National tickets to give away, and all you need to do is comment in the box below and just let us know what your performance of the week was, who you loved, who you didn't really get behind, what you really like, what you're taking out of the festival. Let us know. All comments appreciated, and we will pick a few winners to give away those Irish Grand National tickets. So please do get involved. Let's move on to the novice hurdlers. We're cracking through some of these performances. Tony, let's bounce back again to the Tuesday Supreme. First day, first race, Slade Steel beats Mystical Power. Obviously no Ballyburn in here, and the winner coming here, avoiding Ballyburn ultimately. Again, will we look back on this Supreme with any sort of depth of form here?
I think it was a decent race without being a standing one. Thought maybe on more typical Supreme ground. Like this was, I think, the slowest time for Supreme in living memory. I think it was the easiest, the slowest this century, despite there being some testing ground runnings of it in that time, the Somerville Boy and so on. I think on a more typical Supreme ground, I think Mystical Power might have been able to get the better of Slade Steele. He didn't have his kind of a trip through the race, and just he kind of got past him after the last and just was outstayed. So that said, I wouldn't necessarily say that Mystical Power's a horse that will kind of go on and beat Slade Steele next season. He might be able to beat him at Punchestown on nice ground. The track might suit a little bit better, but Slade Steele might have more to give you. Has more scope. Mystical Power is big Galileo and doesn't look kind of the scopiest and so on. I think Firefox is another one there. He finished third. Another horse that possibly had more to give. I wasn't sure about the tactics on him. They said to drop him in, which was a bit weird, considering all his runs, bar his initial start over hurdles way back last season at Navan, he's kind of been up there. He looks a strong staying 2 miler. He kind of got into trouble, I think, around the last 4 after the last, and kind of rallied again. I think maybe a more forceful ride would see him to better effect. Tully Hill was just, I suppose, flat out disappointing. Didn't seem to have any excuses. Jumped fine. And Asian Master was one that kind of I think shaped well with a view maybe to come back up and trip. Nothing kind of travelled better than him, and I know his first three runs for Willie Munns have all been over 2 miles, but come back looking at his previous form and his other yard, he looked like a horse to be campaigning and staying races, and I think if he goes up to 2.5, that could be a bigger effort than him too.
Okay, a few takeaways then from the Supreme. Barry, what about the Gallaghers? Ballyburn, absolutely brilliant. I mean, some people, was this your sort of wow performance of the week, or did he just go and do what everyone expected of him? Like when you actually sort of take a closer look at the performance, was it really one of wow?
Well, I suppose it was what we all expected. And then when Slade Steele went and won the Supreme, we definitely expected a big performance from him. So no, you couldn't be disappointed. It was an interesting race to watch, just to see his low head carriage. Like you'd see ponies do that, but it's very rare you see a racehorse do it. But just chatting with Paul Townend afterwards, he said he actually isn't pulling that hard, but he is obviously taking a little bit of a hold, but not too much. But he's going around, with his head on the floor. It's very unusual, but he was brilliant through the race. He jumped great, he travelled, he put the race to bed, away he went up the straight. He's a very good horse. But there was more talk about him sticking for the champion hurdle route rather than going novice chasing afterwards. And Willie, I believe, is comparing him to Faheen in a champion hurdle mode, not in a stay and chasing mode. So yeah, he was very good. Jimmy Desai was a notable horse to run on to grab second place. There had been a bit of word about him that morning. So he's a horse that I don't think it'll prove to be a fluke or anything like that. So I'd say the form could be solid enough.
No, and Tony, it's interesting the sort of whispers afterwards in regards to Ballyburn was, as Barry said there, the idea of a champion hurdle next, and then of course that historic thing of a champion hurdle and then a Gold Cup in time. Willie's saying that he thinks this might be the horse to try that with. Do you think that? Do you see that?
I'll come back to that at the end of the show.
Okay. We'll come back to that at the end of the show. I will stick with you then, Tony, for the Albert Bartlett, though, please, because we have Stella Story beating an 18-1 shot in second in the end, and Stella Story at a huge price himself. And bizarre race to watch because nothing else really got into it. It was just about that first wave of horses, and they battled out from start to finish.
Yeah, first 3 were up there. Even the third, Dancing City, was up there the whole way through. I just maybe greater stamina for Stellar Story. One today was a very typical Albert Bart, like it sucked into back in reading Tommy wrong. Now he didn't turn up at all, but it was a very typical race where they can just a strong stayer, the hardened horse got the better of another horse that was quite hard. And I'd say, if you're on the second, it was hard watching after the last. Now it looked like he had it sewn up, it travelled much better, jumped really well. He ran an excellent race for a yard at a really good meeting. But Stellar Story, who interestingly wasn't even an intended runner, I think up until Croke Park was ruled out just before it. So double whammy for backers of the second there when they were probably reading Gordon Elliott's comments afterwards. Actually, the one horse actually I'd take for, I thought Spread Bust Head shaped really well. I think he finished 4th or 5th, but he's definitely worth rating a clear third. The best of those held up. He's also around the inside, typically not the place to be on the Friday, and finished off well. So he might be interesting. Come back to Punchestown in a 3 mile division where there's definitely not a standout.
Okay, and then Tony, I will stick with you for Triumph Hurdle chat because, of course, Madgeborough reversed the form with Cargies back in second and then Salva in third. And a lot of very positive talk for a sort of Triumph Hurdle winner, dare I say, in the aftermath of this race. They clearly think a lot of this Madgeborough.
Yeah, I think time-wise it compared really well to the county. Now, admittedly, the county was very steadily run this season. It was sickening. I was on Kirghiz here. No keen horse. I think it was very hard for keen horses to get home on the ground that was on the Friday. It just made life really difficult. I thought she kind of got lit up. She hadn't been too bad at the Dublin Racing Festival, hadn't been very keen at Christmas, but she got keen again here early, and I'd say Danny Mullins wanted to have her a bit more forward, and he had to take her back for cover. I think he's finished up hitting the front probably a bit soon. I'd say she was the best horse on the day. Now, whether she's the best horse going forward is probably another thing. I'm not so sure about that because Madgeborough does have a huge amount of scope. Looks more like a chaser. He's been quite green there, especially in closing stages, running about, coming to each of the last two, and he seems to be full of stamina. We see the two of them were quite good juveniles, and as I say, the time was excellent in comparison to the county, and they've left all the others from the spring juvenile, the likes of Stormheart and Ethical Diamond and Highwind and all those well behind last Friday.
Yeah, interesting. It looks like we've spoken about a couple of the races being maybe below average renewals, but maybe that Triumph looks a bit of an above average renewal of that. Barry, let's rattle off a few other talking points. Langadang obviously providing part of a great week for the Skelton team, but there's been a lot of talk about his handicap mark and about how he got back down to his last winning mark, obviously, in the race 12 months ago. Just a lot of chat in regards to that, I guess. Some people saying that it's pretty unfair how he's got back down to that mark quite so quickly.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's any fault of Dan Skelton's. The horse obviously was disappointing early on, and he was treated for ulcers. And then he ran in the Lanzarote where he burst. That wasn't officially. He was reported to have bled, but the handicapper still dropped him £2 for that, which was very unusual because whenever you would report a horse having a wind issue or any issue, the handicapper would normally ignore that run. So I don't think Dan Skelton had as much to answer to as maybe the handicapper. It was okay to drop him what he had dropped him to that point, but to take the £2 off him for the Lanzarote when he bled, I was very surprised to see that.
I was also surprised, essentially. Barry, let's stick with you because your pal Ben Pauling had a very good week. Shake him up, Harry won the plate. That must have meant a lot.
It did. If anyone saw Ben's reaction in the winner's enclosure afterwards, he was jumping around like a lunatic as he would, and he was shaping it that way as well for the Jukebox Man and the Albert Bartlett, but it didn't happen. No, but it was a good performance. The thing you'd love most about this fella is the way he jumps. He jumped unbelievably well, and a bit like Galopin Des Champs at the last, down and ping the last. So he's a horse you'd look forward to seeing again, and I'd love to think he'd line up in the top of him, because boy, he was some rider on there, so he would.
Yeah, excellent. He was really hailed as like one of the big jumping performances of the week. Credit to him and for the team for getting it right on the day. What about I Know the Way You're Thinking in the Kim Muir? Again, another excellent ride by the man on board.
Yeah, brilliant ride again by Derek. Trav, but he did everything so well for him too. He looked like a graded horse among handicappers, and he possibly will progress to that level. He ran behind Gaelic Warrior, not beaten that far at Christmas in Limerick, should I say. So he would have caught the eye slightly there, but this was a big run. The second horse, Skidmaker, ran a nice race, but it probably wasn't a vintage renewal. But as I say, he looked like a graded horse amongst handicappers.
Yeah, and he was backed as if he was a graded horse among handicappers as well, by all accounts. Tony, let's come back to you for the Ultima, of course, won by Chianti Classico for Kim Bailey. Got probably, I think, the best reception of day one, which says all you need to know about the atmosphere in regards to day one, given that was the handicap, of course. But some horses to pick out from in behind as well.
Yeah, I thought the third meeting of the Waters went through the race like a well handicapped horse, travelled very well into it, and then just, I suppose, it didn't pick up when initially asked for his effort, and then it's kept on again late. I just wonder, maybe was the run needed a little bit. It was effectively his first run since the Paddy Power chase on the 27th of December. He got no further than the first in the Leopardstown chase in February. he might improve again for us. I wouldn't mind having him on side now for the Grand National. Kind of a young, lightly weighted horse. The field's not going to be as big as it was in that race. I could see him going well if he sharpens up a little bit for this. I just love the way he went through it.
Okay, one for a potential national tilt then. Barry, quick mention for Limerick Lace beating Dino Blue in the Mare's Chase. For Gavin Cromwell, who hadn't, if you're talking at the top of the show as we were about people who were getting decisions right and having a good week, like for a small team, Gavin Cromwell, again, with his runners at this meeting, he's had an amazing time of it over here this season.
He did, and obviously with the ground changed, he took out Bride's Hill and Keith Dunn switched to Limerick Lace. But it was just interesting to see with that softer ground, the tactic. Obviously, the big question mark and the market flopped from Dino Blue being a hot favourite to Limerick Lace going favourite. But it was just interesting to watch it from the turn in, especially Keith Dunn was eager to press the button and make it a test, and Mark Walsh was stalking behind on Dino Blue, waiting to pounce late if he could. But Limerick Lace kept going well. It was kind of good performance, but just thrived on that ground. She was second in the Tri-Town earlier in the season, so she was a proven stayer. But it was a good tactical race to watch.
Absolutely, and she's so likeable. She's a really likeable mare. As the front two actually. Same comments apply to Dino Blue too. Tony, what about the bumper? Obviously, Jasmine DeVoe winning it, Paddy Mullins in the saddle for Willie Mullins' 100th Cheltenham Festival win. I mean, that number kind of seems extraordinary, but of course it is Willie Mullins' world. We're living in it and all of that jazz. But this performance, Paddy getting it right for starters, and the ride he gave the horse as well.
Yeah, picked the right one and give it a fine ride. I'd say similar to last season. Dropped them out in the rear of the field, but dropped them out in the right part of the rear of the field where it meant that he could come up the near side, which seems to be often him the place to be in these bumpers in the last while. So yeah, just an excellent performance for a horse having just a second start. I also thought Romeo Coolio has vastly enhanced his reputation here as well. He's just done, again, he's done everything right there for a horse that's kind of an interrupted season. He was a big drifter on the day. I don't know what he was, 6 or 7 to 1, kind of the lead up to the race. I think he's got off 20s plus. He's settled, he's travelled through the race. He's kind of probably got there a bit sooner than Jasmine DeVoe. He's in the wrong part of the track, but he's kept on really well. So they've definitely got a proper horse there to go to war with next season. Further down the field, I thought Fishery Lane was one that kind of ran really well. He probably should have won on debut at Torres. It was interesting that Willie Mullins went with him to this race rather than the actual winner, and again he's just shaped very well here. He's come from behind Jasmine DeVoe. He hasn't got a hard time, and you could easily see him pitching up a Punchestown, and Barry goes for the champion bumper, winning whichever bumper they decide to go for with him. Fishery Lane.
Yeah, lots to take out of that. Tony, I will stick with you because if we're talking about good rides, what about Paul Townend aboard Absurd in the county? You flagged this up, his only handicap ride of the week, and slices through the field. Extraordinary, despite the ground.
Yeah, quite an unusual county hurdle. I think what do we have down to 17 or 18 or 19 runners on the day, which would be 6 or 7 or 8 lower than it would usually be the case. Paul Nicholls' horse Affadil kind of got loose on the lead, got a great start, 5 or 6 lengths got away. And it was that kind of very steadily run race, but Paul Townend's horse I suppose has the flat speed, but he was able kind of hold on to him. I think holding on to the horse late in the county hurdle, the last place you want to be is kind of hitting the front early in the straight. You're sure to get beaten even in a steadily run county hurdle. And look, even though he clouted the second last and wasn't wonderful at the last, he finished out his race well. I would say that maybe the pace that they went kind of counteracted the ground a little bit. It didn't turn into a slog, but he's one you could easily see competing in graded novice hurdles if he was to go on to Punchestown, provided his jumping though does sharpen up, because that does seem to have been a bit of an issue. I do remember Willie Mullins been interviewed after Galway last season. I think he ran on the Tuesday night at Galway and he got beaten, and he just was horrified. He just couldn't believe that the horse had got beaten, and kind of saying, oh God, I don't know if we'll go for the Ebor at all after that. Of course he did, and the rest is history and all that. So he has always been a horse with a reputation, and yeah, I don't think there's any reason but to believe that he will be a kind of greater performer in time.
Love that he's going to be a top level dual performer, basically. Barry, just in terms of the ride Paul Townend gave him and what Tony said there in regards to his jumping, one of the sort of, I don't know, most noteworthy things I thought watching it on the television on Friday was Paul's reaction afterwards. I don't know if you saw it, but for a man that we see a lot doing those winning interviews at the top of the hill, he was clearly, like, he was brimming from ear to ear for this ride. I presume he'll have got a huge kick out of that.
Oh, I'd say so. Paul would have had it originated on the flat, and it was a typical flat jockey ride to be last, jumping the second last, and find his way through. And he was patient, and he was creeping, and he was just always chipping away at the lead. Knew where the winning post was, and timed his challenge perfectly. And you saw both himself and Harry Skelton were having a good bit of fun afterwards as well. Harry obviously on 4 winners as well at the time, and so was Paul. So that put Paul one ahead of Harry. But I'm sure Harry wasn't too deflated the fact he had 4 winners already.
Yeah, he was flying high, wasn't he? But it is interesting that, those top jockeys from the meeting, the confidence that they're riding with, and then they're in the finish of those sort of races. Tony, let's talk about the Martin Pipe. Waterford Whispers, a painful watch for me personally, given that you flagged him up on this show months ago, quite literally months ago. I know the rest of the world latched onto him, but you were driving that bandwagon, and he gets outdone in the closing stages by Better Days Ahead. Heartbreak for us, Tony. Heartbreak.
Look, hold on, Vanessa. It's only a losing bet now. We'll not get too excited about that. Yeah, could have done with him coming home in front, but you look you kind of get inured to these things over time. Not to worry. And I think it was a very strong piece of form, this race. You very much at the 4 right horses coming forward, coming clear. 4 Irish kind of novices. I think only one of them had a handicap start beforehand. Waterford Whispers at Christmas. Pulled a long way clear. Waterford Whispers, I think, has gone through the race like the best horse for most of it. He's over raced a little bit, but Henry the Brownhead horses can do that and finish out the race is fine. It just Better Days Ahead has just had more stamina. It's just kicked in after the last, but I'd say all 4 of them are kind of horses to keep on side. But for me, yeah, I think Waterford Whispers above all would be the one. For me, I'm interested in where does he go next. There would be the option, the big handicap hurdle on the last day of Punchestown, or they may even opt to put him into a graded novice hurdle. He definitely would have the look of a horse that is able to progress up to that kind of level.
Okay, so another strong form renewal of the Martin Pipe then going forward. Keep that race in your mind. Tony, we're wrapping up the show really. A couple of other points to mention. 12 months' time, what are some of the results going to look like? Can you look into the future for us at this stage?
Very, very difficult look into the future, and I don't think there's anything particularly appealing in the ante-post mark. The one small thing that interested me was the champion hurdle. Willie Mullins has got kind of 3 horses there in around the 4 to 8 to 1 bracket: Stateman, Lossiemouth and Ballyburn. This is a bet now, you're kind of betting on your own misery next season. There's probably very little chance that they're all going to turn up for a champion hurdle. It'd be brilliant if they did, and if you're back a loser and they all turn up, it's an absolutely brilliant race to look forward to. But to me, they would be 3 of Willie Mullins' top 5 horses at the moment, the other 2 being Galopin Des Champs and El Fabiolo. I would say it's very unlikely he wants 3 of them racing against each other, based on past tendencies. Maybe he's getting a bit older and he wants to have them all running against each other, but I would see that as unlikely. So you can do a kind of a somewhat related treble. I'd say in Stateman going for the champion hurdle again, Lossiemouth finishing up in the mares again, which to me would be very possible for a number of reasons. They might just decide to go for the mares again, or maybe more likely she might run against Stateman at Leopardstown in one of those grade 1s and get beaten, and maybe get well beaten, and that might be the only option for her. And Ballyburn going over fences to kind of maybe fulfill what he normally would do. So like, if you were to put those into a treble, I think Stateman champion hurdle, Lossiemouth mares hurdle, Ballyburn Arkle works out about 105 to 1, and if you were to put Ballyburn in for the Turners, it works out about 79 to 1. You need an awful lot to go right, but betting on Willie Mullins splitting up his best horses probably hasn't been the worst policy over the years. And yeah, that would be, you were asking me earlier about the champion hurdle. Yeah, I kind of believe it when I see it. I would expect them maybe to tread fairly distinct paths.
Interesting. Okay, that is very interesting indeed. And all of a sudden, all of those threads and themes suddenly make so much more sense. I see what you did there, Tony. And now you spelled it out to me. Of course, I can see that looks like quite a possible the way you've said it there. I'd love to see him in a champion hurdle, but as you've said, might not be. We'll leave it when we see it. I like that term. Right, finally, listeners and viewers out there, obviously get involved. Where do you think Ballyburn will run this time next year? And who was your performance of the week? Comment in the box below, please, on YouTube. Let's do tracker horses, guys. Tracker horse special from the Cheltenham Festival, please. Tony, I will come to you first. Who was your one horse? You only get one horse to take out the Cheltenham Festival. Who was it?
I think I'll go with a Rocco in the Turners. I think the way that race was run, that was the last thing he wanted coming off a setback. He was also supposed to be ruled out for the season after his win in Warwick. And this race here, it was just from the very start, there was no kind of hiding place, there was no kind of warm-up at all. The Grey Dawning and Ginny's Destiny just went at it. That should have found out any kind of fitness, condition and weaknesses that he had, but he actually hung in really well with them and kind of finished off his race well again. I'd say this trip is probably on the sharp side from two. The way he won the Martin Pipe last year would suggest he's more of a 3 miler. I wouldn't mind see him now going on to the 3 mile race in the entry or something like that. I could see him improving again on that, provided they do get a clear run between now and then.
Okay, Iroko for Tony. And Barry, your tracker horse, please.
Yeah, I thought Answer the Cave stayed on really well from the last in the Martin Pipe, but Brighter Days Ahead and whatever Whispers pulled away from the tourney, got really outpaced but finished strongly from the last. So I'd imagine a step up and trip is on the cards there. So maybe a 3 mile handicap at Punchestown could be of interest for him.
Okay, wonderful. Well, look, boys, thank you very much as always. Of course, your seasonal duties are not done yet because listeners and viewers out there, we have that BoyleSports Irish Grand National special coming your way. We'll also have a Grand National preview, Punchestown preview, plenty of bits and pieces, basically. So stay tuned for more. But for now, thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget, get involved in the comments box below with your performance of the week, and we will be giving away some of those BoyleSports Irish Grand National tickets. So to be in with a chance, get involved. We will pick those winners and announce them on the next show ahead of the Irish Grand National, of course. But for now, thank you very much for watching, for sticking with us throughout the whole season and the Cheltenham Festival. That was Off the Fence.